Hey Sterling, how you doing, man?
Good.
I can't complain, man. It's been one hell of a couple of days here because not knowing what this thing was going to do. But I mean, what do you think Helene's going to do? Helene, hey, is it Helene or Helene? It's Helene, right? Yeah, Helene.
Good question. Because I've said both, and I've been corrected both times. So.
Yeah, but I mean, I've often wondered if they would give it a truly horrific name, like a horrific name, like petunia grape or something like that. Just something just too truly horrible, and how we would change it. But anyway, so what do you think? What do you think Helene's going to do?
Well, honestly, I wasn't too concerned about it for the past few days. I know that a lot of my associates were telling me which way it was going to go, and I had a lot of people telling me that it's going to be horrendous and little or whatever. But until I came home today and put on my specific weather channel and was watching the magnitude of it, just the size, I think that my personal opinion, it might actually pull more right. And if it does, it's going to hit the Tampa area, which hasn't been hit in over 100 years, I believe.
The softest of targets,
Yes.
the softest of targets, only to be bested by Orlando.
Yeah, I actually think it's going to be something interesting. Like
Well, I think what's going to happen is it's going to pull a little bit to the right. Doesn't matter if it pulls to the right, to be honest with you. It doesn't matter at all because if it comes in as a four, a heavy four or a five, and there's enough people out there saying both, that it gives me the idea that it could be either. I don't wish that on anybody because like a hard four or a hard five running into Tallahassee and tearing ass up through Tennessee is going to be rough.
I
I
agree.
mean, you remember Hurricane Michael and how you had. I mean, we had places like in Albany, for example, that had just got thrashed in Albany, Georgia. And it's like hurricane in Albany, but I mean they're going to have hurricane winds in Atlanta.
Well, I think it's interesting you brought up Michael because it kind of reminds me of Michael. And what happened in Michael in 2018 is no one really took it serious, and until like maybe half a day before, and it condensed itself and took a track that went to the right. So it was pretty much unpredictable. And I'm not sure what this one's going to do, but I do think that it's. I mean, I'm already getting hit by it over here, and I'm looking at the radar. My headquarters is over in Daytona Beach Shores on the east coast of Florida, south of Jacksonville, and we're already getting rain. It's spread out so far. I just, you know, here we
It's
are.
it's going to be 500 miles wide, dude.
It's aggressive.
That means it. You know what it reminds me of, actually, personally. It reminds me of like when I looked at Katrina years ago. Okay, and you looked at Katrina and you're like, that's going to hit everything. Like it almost doesn't matter where it lands. It's going to tear everything up. And that's pretty much what it did. No matter it touched, I mean, it went all over and touched everything. And I just think that this thing was, I just think this thing is like the perfect setup. I wish that it wasn't hitting Tallahassee, honestly, because, well, my kids live there and I like them a lot, but I don't want them to have to stay with me in long term. Probably shouldn't have said that in public, but no, I mean, it's just interesting because, like if I got calls from people down in like Fort Myers today where it was just sucking out all the water from like all the bodies of water there, all the ditches, every kind of thing out there was just sucking it right out. And it's going to suck it out and it's going to bring it back. And it's a testament to just how strong it is. And it doesn't take a brain surgeon to look at this thing and know that it's big enough to just do what it wants to. And if it, just like there's a couple of things I think about. We know it's going to slow a little bit. What if it slowed way down? If it slowed down to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 miles per hour and just eked across, think what that's going to do to Tampa. Because remember, like if you get 80-mile-an-hour winds in Tampa, okay, you're already going to get catastrophic flooding. But if you got 80-mile-an-hour winds in Tampa, just think about the number of structures that are really tall there. I mean,
Do you think there's a possibility that it's actually going to be pulled out a little bit more East Coast? Because right now it's kind of geared towards the same path as the last hurricane.
yeah, but the difference here is this is so big This is so big that the dirty side of this storm is like basically like there's 200 miles of hurricane strength wind. I mean, do you have a concept of what it's going to look like if you put 15 feet in Tampa?
Well, the 9-foot surges that are, supposedly happening in the Tampa area and the Big Bend area, it's going to be substantial. I'm just more worried about the flooding in that area, especially by the Cedar Key, which just got hit not too long ago, flooded out that area. The only positive thing I could say about that is it's a rural area. If it follows that path, but since it's 200 miles wide on the east side of that storm, it's gonna hit and impact quite a lot of cities that aren't so rural. But looks like it's going to rip through a part of Florida that may not be so concerning for mass-oriented cities.
Right. I mean, you've got an MSA in Tallahassee, which is essentially like 450,000 people. Okay. The thing about Tallahassee, the reason why it's going to be particularly bad for Tallahassee is Tallahassee actually likes its trees and grows them. And they have huge numbers of these oak trees that, when they come down, it's bad. And, and I mean, even in that last storm that hit them, I mean, we were already doing large loss work there.
Sorry, I'm going to divulge a little bit here. You say trees, right? And trees are an important aspect of a loss if you're going to have a loss, because most policies don't have a lot of coverage for debris removal, tree removal. However, there are technicalities that matter for, tapping into the coverage A to get rid of the trees. Now, sometimes properties can have $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, like the average size property can have $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 of tree removal. But the policy reads, $500 or $1,000 of debris removal. Now, there's two things that are important that I would, want most people to understand, contractors alike, is that if the tree is actually laying on the structure or a structure, then it taps into a different part of the policy, which you can, incorporate more than the debris removal if the tree was just on the property blocking your driveway, things like that.
Yeah, as long as it's on the structure, right? As long as it's, yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to mention was most contractors, especially contractors, don't know this little caveat, this special piece of information, is that if you have a limit, which applies to all limits on the policy, if you surpass a limit, then you can absorb the deductible. So if you have a $20,000 deductible or $5,000 deductible, whatever it may be, but you're surpassing limits of tree removal, debris removal, other structures, mold, whatever it may be, you can absorb that hefty deductible in order to, help the policyholder feel more comfortable to file a claim. I represent policies, commercial assets that have $3 million deductibles, and it scares them away from filing claims, but you can absorb the deductible residentially or commercially in certain aspects of the policy language. So I think that's important to note.
Well, I mean, and that I think you just came up on something, Sterling, that's kind of important that I think a lot of people miss. And I think a lot of contractors miss this. Okay. I mean, if I have a policy question, I'm going to call you and say, hey, this is what this policy says. What does this mean? How does this apply? Because at the end of the day, what is a public adjuster? You're an insurance contract lawyer, as it really gets down to. It's really fine. It's a really fine thing. It's the only cutout we have that like it in the world. But basically, policy. You are the greatest. You are the greatest producer of information on policies. I had a loss years ago where and there's this guy. I'll tell you, his name's Phil Davidson. If you ever need something on a policy, you can call him. Phil Davidson owns Davidson Public Adjusters in New Jersey, and Phil does this thing that I just always loved. Okay, when he gets a claim, he reads the policy twice. It doesn't matter if he's seen that policy 100 times. He reads the policy, and one of the most common terms you'll hear on his claims is, okay, the policy says this and we'll adjust it accordingly. And And the thing is, he often is telling somebody about policy. And this guy, I looked at this loss and I drove away, and I got on the plane and drove away. It was up in New York, in Soho. And it had been in like a conversion property where it used to be, like manufacturing, and it became dwellings. And so it had like a typical HOA and common area thing. So he calls me and says, I just finished my second read of the policy. The policy says the association is responsible for bringing it back to pre-conversion condition. So pre-conversion condition. So that meant that the HOA policy actually covered HVAC, plumbing, cabinetry, stoves, bathrooms. I mean, just all these things except for like flooring and some very customized things. But basically they covered all of that. So it took a claim in all reality that was, like $800,000 and turn it to a $3.5 million claim.
Woo, like that.
Well, what it did was, that was so cool, is it made it really easy for the insureds that had the units, because now they could go to their insurance companies and say, oh, I just need this because this is taken care of by the other policy. And the insurance company's like, yeah, we'll do that. Like, it was no fight, because like they took, like 30-40% away from the State Farms of the world. But I'm just saying, like, it's like a lot of these guys, especially contractors, I think they miss the boat because they step into a very risky position by doing work without understanding what will be paid. And sometimes they'll say, well, I talked to the adjuster and he said this was good. But who says the adjuster read the policy?
Well, contractors are stepping into a world that I'm not sure they know they're stepping into when it comes to claims handling, and I'm very sensitive.
Well, I mean, I think that's dangerous, and it's usually illegal.
Right. They're dancing a thin line, and I think that they should have a professional with them to understand how to maximize what they're doing, to getting the engineers, and more importantly, babysitting the claim. I say babysitting the claim because the contractors really, there's this old saying, stay in your lane, right? The contractors, they should have the money for it, and the money that they should have should be collected by the insurance company. And if they need help by it in a legal fashion, then, public adjusting is where the answer is.
Well,
dancing around a line that they should.
Answer me this, okay? So I'm a contractor, and I just picked up this decent sized loss, and I'm working it. Tell me why I should say to the insured, hey, I'd like you to talk to Sterling. Why would I want to do that?
Well, there's multiple reasons why. First of all, as a contractor, you're going to have a conflict of interest for the money that you're getting from the insurance company, the scope, and the amount of money you're getting, but also the laws in itself. You can't negotiate it. All your line is the scope. You can't negotiate dollar figures. And are you able to negotiate with the engineers and all these other possibilities? Like, as a contractor, you should understand that it's like, you want to get paid the most amount of money to fix the property to the way it was prior to the storm. And the laws and how you get involved in the process of that may get a little bit hazy, and conflict of interest and the moral obligation and things like that. Plus, as a contractor, are you really that savvy to the language of policy and the laws and what kind of paperwork, documentations that need to be notarized, presented to the carrier in a certain fashion? And, here's the truth: is it's getting more and more condensed to the freedom that the policyholder has. And what I mean by that is, it's no longer so lackadaisical. Like, you literally have to abide by certain time frames with notarized documents, proof of losses, certain documents. And like, as a contractor, you don't want to be exposed to the liability of messing up a claim, especially in the commercial round, or you're on the hook for millions of dollars. And if you misstep, then the HOA or the CAM or the board or whatever it may be can come back to you and say, you messed up my claim. And now you're looking at, if people get really involved in it, you're looking at, attorneys and fraud and insurance fraud and all these different horrible things. Why not just separate yourself from that completely? Let a PA take all that burden off your shoulders and solicit more jobs. And if you can't get where you want, get another PA.
Well, that I have I have an interesting thing that I think about that is a lot of time. Okay, I got the dang cat again. This is Honey. She only comes whenever the camera's on, and she does this during depositions and court and all kinds of things like that. And the defense got mad at me one day when she did this, and I said neither Honey or I believe that the scope provided by the carrier was enough for the. And the defense got really mad, and I was like, and the judge laughed.
I was going to say, you can depose Honey if you like.
By the way, we were talking a little bit about contractors, and one thing that I think about with contractors is, and this comes from dealing with a lot of people that I know that do adjusting, that contractor is going to get paid whatever they want to pay the contractor. It is not like when they deal with the PA. When they deal with the PA is advocating for that equitable total for that work. But otherwise, the carriers often see the contractor as working for proceeds. And so if it's proceeds and you have no stroke whatsoever to adjust those proceeds, they can just pay you what they want. I'm not telling you that all carriers do that behavior on purpose, but they have no regulatory responsibility to do anything with the contractor. They have a regulatory responsibility to negotiate in good faith with you.
Here's where I stand with the contractor and the policyholder. I mentioned a little bit about before, the contractor's there to deal with scope and not pricing and, not cause and origin and policy language and all these things that they might get wrapped up in and not knowing that they're getting wrapped up into something that might put them on some thin ice. But when I'm talking to a policyholder, it's like, they need to understand that a contractor is there to understand the scope, but a public adjuster is there to understand the scope, the policy, and what the contractor doesn't see, what might be up to code, what should be paid for by the policy that the contractor doesn't know. So ultimately, it benefits the contractor and the policyholder simultaneously if you get a correct public adjuster involved. But it's more important to really focus on the policyholder. And what I mean by that is the policyholder has the freedom to do what they want with the money that they get from the settlement or the appraisal or whatever it may be. So the contractor no longer has the freedom or the ability to increase or decrease the profit margins. And right. I know a lot of contractors are going to be upset with me saying that, but I deal with contractors on a national level, and they understand where I lie with that, and I deal with them all the time, and the contractors know me as a person that they want to continue to do business with. So ultimately, it's about the policyholder and the freedom for them to do what they want with the money that they should be getting from the policy they are paying for. Now, the long trek and the road to get there needs to be guided. It needs to be guided. Mm-hmm. And now my attorney's going to hate me because I'm going to say, attorneys are the last thing you want to go to. And policyholders will agree with me, so I can say it freely. And again, I have lots of relationships with wonderful attorneys, but they understand that, nobody wants to sue anybody unless it's the last thing you need to do. So contractors need to stay in the lane in terms of scope and not deal with policy language or pricing. And attorneys are the last ditch effort to do what you need to do. So the public adjuster is more or less like right there in the middle ground to guide the policyholder, keep it out of litigation. But if it does go to litigation, the public adjuster should have all the contacts and the correct attorneys to deal with that.
Yeah, and I just think if if like if you think about like what they say, like it, like what the state's website says about PAs. What does it say about what they do for a claim?
Well, you
It
want to
says,
know what I think it should say or what it does
well,
say?
it does say that they on average increase a claim by like something like 700%.
Yes, yes, very interesting. I thought you were going on a different
No,
different.
no, no, no. I was not going to talk about Jimmy P today, and you being a locust, but other than that.
Yes. By the way, look, we all know I'm not going to go there right now, and I love you for saying that. Thank you very much. I appreciate you standing up for us, looking out for the public. Here's what I say. I say public insurance adjusters are licensed by the state to protect the public. And the reason why the license was in existence in the first place was to protect the public, to keep you out of litigation. That was like our whole goal of what we're licensed for. So unless you're going to do everything you can do to justify why you are licensed, like I hold a license to protect the public and to keep you out of litigation. So I'm going to do that to the best of my abilities. And I'm going to try to do that because you want to get paid, I want to get paid, and we don't want to get sued.
Well, and I think as a public adjuster, you are especially in Florida, you are the purest version of consumer protection
I agree with that.
that exists. And, you know, and I say that you're the purest because you don't get paid unless the insured gets paid.
David, you said something to me a couple months ago. We were on, a conversation about one of the claims you're dealing with, and I was going through something rough with one of my clients, and they were going through something rough, because my client and me tend to be one and the same. You said something that hit a chord with me. You were like, Sterling, public adjusters in general, what shouldn't be brushed under the rug is the fact that you literally will continue to work and continue to do this and deal with people that are very upset, emotional, and you have the carrier beating you up and telling you you're wrong when you know you're right, and you're doing all these things, and you keep going after it. And what you said to me was quite amazing, that what's worth its weight in gold is your ability to be patient to get paid. It's like, Sterling, at the end of the rainbow, you're helping these people, and you're out how much? Sometimes $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, and then you finally get paid at the end of the rainbow, and it's like, that's worth its weight in gold. And that's stuck with me. I appreciated you recognizing that, and I hope most other people do as well.
Well, like let me give an example of like you deal with, and I know you deal with a lot of very large claims, okay? And you have to deal with HOAs, and that is a version of hell that's all its own, okay? But the thing is, you have to basically engage in a kind of stakeholder management that a contractor, an attorney, pretty much anybody else on the claim can't have that degree of stakeholder management. Like I'll give you an example. It has been many times in my life where I've had to go to an HOA meeting with a PA to talk to them.
Does the PA save it?
Yes, it does. That's right. Okay. But I can also tell you, when I've had to do that same thing with an attorney, it is considerably more difficult because he does not have the purest play there is, because you're directly connected to the outcome in a much more indelible way than the attorney is. It's not that the attorney isn't attached to the outcome. Don't get me wrong.
I have wonderful attorneys that I work with. I love them.
Don't get me wrong. I love good litigators. I love people that can do this, and I love the tools they have in their quiver when we need them.
In the quiver.
When we need them, they are sometimes the best salve for that. But really, to get down to it, when the PA says it's time for the attorney, it's less of a hassle for the insured to go there because they already have a trust relationship with you.
Yes.
Yes, your name's actually Trust Public Adjusters. I just thought about it. What would you say if we just said the insured, when they have a claim, what's the mistake they usually make the most?
Commercial or residential?
whichever you want to say. I have a feeling I know it's the same thing either way. I think it's duties after loss.
Yes, it was similar. What I was about to say is basically the same thing. Is their ability to be convinced, to be scared of their insurance company. So they've been conditioned to be scared of their insurance company, even though they're paying for these protective things. And the whole reason why they're paying this money is to be protected. There's the number one kickback is the deductible, especially in commercial properties. My deductible, because sometimes, you see $1 million deductibles, whatever, but like it's this fear that's been instilled in the public, even on residential, everyday people, to investors that have, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of assets. They're all like, the number one thing that I would think, or the number one thing that I would say is, kickback is their fear to file a claim. And I think it's quite frankly, I don't know how to say this, but you're paying for something to protect your property and you're scared to use it. And that shows you about the media, and it shows you about what's going on in our society and the government, everything else like that. And before we go down that rabbit hole, shouldn't be scared to file a claim or investigate the damages, because the second thing is they want to, because of the fear, right? Because of that fear to file the claim, they want to bandage their property, their asset, their personal home, whatever it is. They want to bandage it up. And it's hand in hand with the fear, because if you're scared of it, then you're going to bandage it, and then now you're worse off. So it's like a domino effect, and it's quite frankly quite intelligent that the insurance companies motivated the mentality of the public to do that.
And what happens when you band-aid your property and you have a claim later? That's right, because they're going to look at it and say, well, you didn't fix this old damage, so it's all old damage.
Or you knew about it and you didn't tell us about it, and we put language.
This is just opportunistic. Like you have all this damage and you didn't fix it, and now you want us to fix it all now that you have a little more damage. I find it comical, but I spend a lot of time in court, and I will tell you, I don't care if it's commercial, I don't care if it's residential, I don't care what kind of claim it is. 9 times out of 10, they're crossing me to see if they can get me to stumble, but their real game is to say that the insured violated the contract for insurance by not following duties after loss.
Well, here's where it becomes very interesting. And David, what you said was absolutely correct. No question about it. However, it's a unilateral contract, and there are state statutes that protect the consumer. And when I say unilateral contract, what that basically means in layman's terms is that the insured is less informed than the insurer. All right. So when you follow that through, it's like, well, what did you do wrong? Did you not do it? Did you do it? How did you do it? So even though
it's a contract of adhesion, remember?
Okay.
It's a contract of adhesion. So who's got the power? Who's got the most power? Is the person that's in the contract, the insurer. That's right.
And the insured, right?
No, the insured does not have the most power. The insurance company does, because they made the contract.
Yeah, but the unilateral aspect of it shows that they're less informed than the insurer.
Yes, and in real life, they're supposed to have more sway on the contract ultimately in litigation, but it doesn't always work out that way. Okay, like let me give you an example. Okay, let me just give you an example of something in my own life. Okay, so I have a dumpster at my house after my fire, because I think I'm probably going to do demos sometime soon. So get a dumpster, right? Before my EUO, they sent another cause and origin guy, because I guess the first cause and origin guy wasn't good enough.
But can I interject?
Yeah.
For everybody that's listening, cause and origin is only for establishing coverage. But haven't they already established coverage?
Yes, they had. Actually, what I said to them is they told me over and over that they hadn't established coverage. And I said, look, when you put me into long-term housing, we were in it. You already established that I couldn't live at home. We're done. Okay. But here's the catch. So the dumpster's there. So I get a note that goes to my attorney for the EUO. I don't have an attorney on the claim, but just someone. I have a rule. If I sit with attorneys, I have attorneys. It's just the way it goes. Like, it's just dangerous not to be in that world without having somebody with you. So they told my attorney that that the Herrings had engaged in what exfoliation of evidence because they
Ooh.
had started demo. Now there was
Tricky
nothing.
questions there, huh?
There was
This
nothing.
is like all these words that Mr. Hang is using and that I'm using, like the differentiation of one word versus another is very, especially for the contractors listening, it's important for you guys to know that one word can literally change the outcome of a claim. So, Mr. Herring, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. No, but you see, then I had to come back and say, no, there's nothing in the dumpster, and I wasn't doing that. You were in the house. You even took a Matterport of the house. You can see I didn't do demo. But my point is, what was I being set up for? I was being set up for duties after loss, that I was violating the contract of insurance. And here's the catch: contractors shouldn't be playing that game.
Yeah, I agree. Post loss obligations.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
dangerous world. Dangerous
Yeah.
world.
Let me tell you about a loss actually in Daytona some years back. They had a PA, and there was just this bone of contention on the roof. Like the carrier didn't want to pay for the roof. Now, the really crazy part of that was that the contractor had climbed 22 flights of stairs in the dark to carry big rolls of TPO to patch the roof because it had been peeled back. Like this is not hard. This is not heavy lifting. Like there was something major wrong here. And I thought you should just paid for the roof since they went to that kind of heroics to save the property. Okay, that's just me. But so at any rate, they didn't want to do it. And so the PA said, we're going to need an attorney for this part of it because we're going to need to engage in some things that may need to be dealt with in court. So for the narrow focus of putting this roof on, the carrier wanted to observe everything they were doing on the roof and as they were pulling the old roof off. Okay. And so what they did was they got so the PA got the lawyer. They worked out their arrangement where they would keep somebody. They wouldn't work unless one of these two people was on the roof from the carrier. Okay. It just seems a little like, why? It just didn't make sense. It was like too much sugar for a dime. So the attorney called us and said, I need you to be on the roof without ceasing when anybody is working on it or even leaving and coming back to work. One of you have to be on the roof constantly. Okay.
Interesting.
Well, one of my guys on the roof watched one of the guys from the carrier start digging in the roof and cutting some things out.
I love it already.
Putting it in his bag and then leaving.
And that person was hired by the carrier.
Yes. And so what did he do?
Boom.
Boom. Guess who got the roof done? But my point is that, but the smart play was the PA said, for this function, because it's like this, I'm going to need an attorney for this narrow scope of this problem.
Interesting.
He understood that something was way up the food chain and he needed some extra support. Now, he finished that claim without an attorney because they worked that part out and it just went on. He was smart enough to know that we needed to do this. And that turned the whole corner on the whole claim. Now, the reason why it turned like that was not because the guy was wrong for getting something out of there. What did he do wrong?
Well, it was the process of it.
He did it in secret.
It was destructive investigation. I think it's
It's destructive investigation, but he hid it.
Yeah, and also look, it reminds me of the story. I had a big restaurant, and I think it was in Ocala, and it was like a 2-story restaurant, and it was on the water on this river. This was a few years back, and it was a senior adjuster that was working for the carrier. Now, these are my favorite when they tell you, I've been doing this for 30, 40 years. And at that time I was like 30 years old. And I was like, that's fantastic. And I told him, I said, look, well, then you need to go back to all of the insurer or the insureds that you went and investigated, and you need to go back and apologize. But that's another story. I did say that. But anyways, we were on this 2-story restaurant on the water, and telling me how senior he is to me. I was 30 at the time, And we get on the roof, and he takes a knife and he just starts digging the knife into the TPO system. And I had an apprentice with me at the time, and I said, "You need to take your video out and camera." And he did. And I said, "I want to let you know, I just videoed you doing that." And he goes, "What did I do?" And so he had no idea. This senior adjuster just took a pocket knife and stabbed the TPO system right into the roof. And he was so ignorant to the fact that he thought he was so, knowledgeable, but he literally bought the roof because he put a knife into it, and he thought it was normal, and he thought it was okay and acceptable. And telling me that I don't know what I'm doing, but he's digging a knife into the TPO system.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to tell you something. And I don't want this to seem like I'm beating up on the carriers, okay? No, I don't want it to seem like that. But I mean, I'm going to tell you something, and I think this is shameful, okay? But I talked to lots of insurance adjusters, and I talked to lots of insurance adjusters to become PA, okay? And I was talking to a guy the other day who had been a PA for 3 years after being an IA for 20. And he told me, he said it took him almost 2 solid years to stop thinking about himself as a shyster. Because every day of his life, for 20 years, he was essentially told that PAs and contractors were fraudulent and insureds to some degree.
Can we talk about something? Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but
You're not interrupting me. Go for it. That's why we're here, man.
I love this conversation because I've had 3, I'm not going to say any names or anything, but I've had 3 senior IAs. Is my camera getting blurry?
No, you're good. It uploads it in the background. So
I've had 3 senior IAs, 10, 20 years. They're questioning whether or not to jump ship. And most of the time, if you go out to the field, you'll get a feel for the IA if they're halfway inquisitive about being a PA or just like bullshitting or whatever. Because most of the IAs, either they hate you or they're like, they have some sort of like, what's going on with the PA world? I love it. But, I've got PAs that are more and more scared about the future of being an IA. And I think it's interesting that they're contacting me and telling me certain things about the inside of the world of being an IA.
Yeah. And the thing is,
today, Mr. Herring, today I had somebody that is licensed in all 50 states, and she was in my office, and she was literally saying, "I want to be a PA." And it was flattering that she was in my office, because I talked to you about the other guys that, that are questioning, and they're all so terrified of becoming a PA. And I get the fear. I understand it. But, they're all kind of dancing in this fog of what they're going to do, what they are. Because I was talking to one of my PAs. He's on fire. His name is Samir. He's on fire. He's totally he's going to be a very successful PA. Now, he's talking to all these guys, and, the fear that these IAs have to make the switch is quite phenomenal. It's actually phenomenal and a little bit comical at the same time.
I'm always captivated. Like sometimes in our estimation shop, when we fix a problem, the guys will say, we fixed that one, so let's see what unintended problem we now created. Okay, it's that whole idea of the unintended consequence. Okay, and I'm always captivated by that because it's usually got a lot of humor involved in it. And the carrier started, and this is an indictment of the carrier, but I can't do anything about it. They know they publish data about how to do claims best, and one of the ways they say to do claims best is let the adjusters adjust.
I laughed.
But instead of doing that, they take an adjuster who is trained as an adjuster, has skills in adjuster, has been adjuster for years, and has been adjusting claims. And they take them and they make them a glorified estimator. They send it to the carrier. The carrier changes the estimate, and they are completely out of the process at that point, completely gone. And so what happens is a lot of what happened last time we had a hurricane. I had all these IAs calling me with precisely the same issue. I keep, they're right on the coast. I keep running into these roofs, these tile roofs that are done. I've run an ITEL on them. They're no longer available. I don't even think we could repair it.
Well,
It's that bad. And then so they would write up a full report, and then they would come back with their name on it, and it'd come back with 124 individual tiles. And so like one of these guys called me up one day and he goes, I can't keep doing this. I can't. It's wrong. I can't do it. I'm defrauding these people of 60 or 70 or 80 or $1,000 at a time. So you know what he did? He called me from Kinko's. He printed the entire claim file, put it in a folder, went by the insured's house and said, give this to your attorney. He'll know what to do.
Well, the IAs are, look.
You know, and that, by the way, that guy that did that's now a PA.
Yeah, I mean,
and they did that to him. He didn't do it to them.
Right, and I understand that. It was like the IAs are getting squeezed because like the guy, I'm talking about like the 3 or 4 different people that are literally reaching out to me to become a PA, but they're scared about the transition and all that stuff. But it's backwards. Like what's happening is the authority that they used to have to write checks out in the field, like that's gone. That's been gone for years, right? And so now they don't even have the authority to really write an estimate or to assess damages. So in the carrier's mind, they're like, what do we need you for at all? And I think it's totally, anti-consumer for that to happen. But so the field adjusters that are working for the carriers that we're making like, 150, 200 grand, 250,000 a year, their money is getting squeezed down less and less and less. And they're understanding that they have less and less authority, less and less responsibility. So now they're like, well, what do we do next? And so now they're thinking like, okay, public adjusting. But they're all too scared to make the jump. I'm not blaming them. I'm not saying that they're pansies or anything, women or male, female or male. It's like, how do you go from making $150,000, $200,000 and jumping ship and, stressing out on the first year and a half or 2 years of being a PA? Because that's what it takes. I tell all my PAs, I've been training PAs for a decade. I've trained, upwards of 30 of them. And it's like, you have to have a good source of income for at least 12 to 18 months. And then outside of that, it'll start, paying for itself. But that's a strong amount of time for anybody to be fighting against their own, to like jump ship. And what I was asking you when I interrupted you for was the dark side analogy. Like, did you ever know that the carrier refers to the public adjuster as the dark side?
They do. They do.
Opposite. Let's talk about that. The carrier looks at a public adjuster as the dark side. But in the movie Star Wars, the dark side is literally the big, like, huge Death Star money, people like killing planets, like dictating tyranny. And then, the rebels are the guys fighting this huge, outstanding power. It's like,
right.
How the hell did the insurance company so warped that they literally look at the rebels as the dark side?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, what they do is like this. Okay, it's like there are some truly reprehensible PAs in the business.
I believe that.
I mean, unsavory humans, like people that you should take on a one-way fishing trip. I mean, they're terrible. Okay. So what they do is they take those guys and they overlay their opinion of them, which is justified, over the entire industry. Wow. And that's not fair. It's not right, but they do it because it's convenient to do so. Okay. Because the truth is there are PAs in the business that engage in a level of fraud. I know one PA that on one particular storm said if there was any exterior damages to basically to destroy the entire home.
But David, before we go down this road of PAs that are existing, and I believe that they do exist, but tell me if there is a career or profession or licensed profession or anything of the sort that doesn't have bad apples. It's true.
It's true. Like there's bad apples in everything, and what they're doing is very convenient. Okay, and also recognize there's a reason why you do it. Why do you do it? Because you want you when I go out, like if I were going to go toe to toe with you on a claim, if I came out and I was the adjuster, I would have a different feeling about going to see you than I would be about going to see the head of the agency, because you know the policy, you've handled a ton of claims, you've been at this longer than I have. You know, I mean, that kind of thing. It would just, you know, like you're, by the way, part of the reason people get really suspect of the PAs is they don't understand, how do those people stay in, how did those people make a living doing this? Like they don't really understand that. Like I told a PA one time, he says, how do I make a living being a PA?
It's hard.
And I said, you go do 100 claims. And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, you go to 100 claims. I said, and you do those claims, and those people will start bringing you business until the day you die. And I said, but understand, I said, what they're doing this because you had good bedside manner, because you were a good person, because you looked after them. And I said, and it's the greatest referral in the world, because you're saying, hey, I just think it's cool.
Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate that this has kind of turned into a public adjuster, not praising situation, but I really think that public adjusters kind of get a bad rap. We have the person that's governing our license talking badly about us. We have contractors that look, the point is David, you're a very seasoned man in this industry. You're on a national level, and it's flattering for you to say these things for our profession, for all public adjusters to be recognized for what we're doing for the public. I mean, the license wouldn't exist otherwise if we weren't needed. And, we're here to protect the public. We're not here to be a contractor squeezing profit margins. We're literally here to adhere to the language of the policy, the state statutes for contracting, abiding by all the negotiation rules, having relationships with attorneys if needed. And honestly, the end of the road is public adjusters are literally here to protect the public. Mm-hmm. In my early stages of my career, I didn't like the title of a public adjuster. I thought it was kind of lame. What am I, a public adjuster? What does that mean? Do I work for the state? But when I divulged into the responsibilities of that profession, I started to understand more about what it was. And, being a private adjuster is what I thought would have been more suitable. I'm your private adjuster. And I didn't understand why I was a public adjuster. I should have been a private adjuster. But then, as my career expanded even more, I realized that wasn't correct either. And it is actually a public insurance adjuster. And then I realized the history of my license, and why I hold the license, and why the license exists in itself. And then you take pride in that, because it's not just the policyholder that you're protecting. You're also encouraging an influx of economy for the contractor, for the real estate agents, for the value of all your neighbors. And it just kind of flowed. And I realized at that point, a public insurance adjuster is the appropriate name, and it's the license that I want to hold. And I'm proud of it. And as much as I want to pull my hair out half the day, I also want to enjoy the times where my clients come in tears and hug me and all that other good stuff.
Man,
dude, that was beautiful stuff, man.
It's still, we still got it. Listen, I think, by the way, what you should be called is
stuff. Did you not hear that stuff? Like that was.
I heard that stuff. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. But I think what you should be called is a public advocate.
Public advocate. Yeah, I was kind of getting into that. Like, if you read
because here's the thing, you're advocating. You're a public advocate. You could be an insured advocate for that matter. But I'm just saying, like, the idea of being a public advocate, I think, is really cool.
I love it, dude. And like what I was saying was like the history of the license and like how I felt personally with the private. I should be called a private adjuster versus public adjuster, like all that good jazz. And then you just came back. I hope you heard everything I said. Or maybe you lost the video or whatever, but what did you say, private or public advocate?
The reason why I say that is, and I'm not going to do the politics thing, but it's not politics. It's just that I loathe our legislature and governor because of what they did. And I have the right to do that without being political. Okay. They shook down the people. I mean, you have a 30-day right of rescission now on your contract. That's ridiculous. There is one public. There's one public adjuster in the entire country that has anything even in the neighborhood of that.
Yeah, 3 days. Dude, I had a meeting with my team today. It's like 30 days. So like back off, because if you sign them up on the 20th day, then it's still back to the 10-day. And we had this whole mathematical thing about like signing people up and sending out, our estimators or matter porters or whatever. And, look, man, it's a tough world out there, but I honestly believe that I talked to Nancy Dominguez.
I like Nancy a lot. I just don't like when she tells me not to say that Jimmy Petronas called you a locust.
Yeah, and I think that they're a little bit of a people pleaser. Does that make sense? What it really matters is the fact that our profession is becoming so much more valuable because of the moves that the insurance companies are making.
And because of and to some degree, your public adjuster license in Florida became more valuable because what they did to limit the attorneys.
Yes.
Because now if I want to go get an attorney, I'm going to lose 30% of my claim. And if I have a claim that's not worth a lot of money, I'm not ever getting an attorney.
Like with my company, I'm actually worried about the PA. I got attorneys that really want to keep my business. So they're willing to cut their fees in half. Like I'm making more than most of my attorneys, but like I'm not worried about that. Well, I am worried about that, but like what I'm more concerned about is like the anti-consumer is out of control, and it really is. It's something else, man. I think that honestly, in the long run, if you want to be a PA, this is the time to get into it. I know there's going to be a downswing with some income. I'm not too concerned about that. I think that, it won't take but 3-4 years. By that time, the pipeline from then is going to be paying out. We might have a downswing of a 30 to 40% income ratio, but we'll still have the income when the hammer comes back down and the government realizes how much they fell.
But what most people don't understand is usually somebody got into the adjusting business for one reason. They wanted to make a living and do something really good. Okay. I'm sorry, but like 30 years ago, an adjuster could feel good every day.
Dude, a field adjuster used to cut checks in the field.
Yeah, cut checks. I mean, like you remember when the field adjuster used to walk up and say, "Hey, we're going to go ahead and take care of that roof now and get you dried in and take care of that problem in the kitchen. And then you're probably going to need some more stuff, but let's go ahead and get that done, and then we'll work on the rest a little later." Like we're in this together. It was very cool. But my point is that they got into it for that feeling, for that ability to do that and to make a good living. As that's slowly been robbed of them.
Oh yeah.
So when they come back to the public adjusting world, they have an opportunity to feed that same thing they started with. And so it's actually a really, really healthy thing for them. Because at the end of the day, that's what they were trying to do. And I think most people don't see that. And I think some people, like at the carrier side, don't understand why somebody would do that.
It's a very astute point. I mean, that's letting humanity be humanity. It's believing in humanity that these IAs are actually out there to help. And I like that positivity and belief in humanity that you're holding, Mr. Herring.
Well, look,
it's telling me different.
I watch IAs that do nothing but appraisal now, that do it because it gives them the emotion of what they had lost in the industry, because it makes them part of the solution. And it's the same thing they do when they move to PA. And I still think, and there's a lot of people that disagree with me on this. Okay. But I think I have an irreverence for the way things are done.
Okay, so there's a new law firm. I don't want to mention it because I can't actually quote them, or who they are, but I want to say a notion for PAs to watch out for this particular law firm that is in Miami, and they will come after you. And if you're doing an EUO or a deposition, and it's this law firm, the attorney that's representing your client is not enough. You have to have your own representation. Now, I've done lots of depositions, and of course, I feel comfortable representing myself. But when somebody's literally like their law firm is they're geared towards putting it to the PA, even though the carrier has put an under deductible payment and then the undisputed with the PA is 30,000 and their deductible is 24 grand or 2,400 or sorry, 2,500. But the discrepancy from their initial payment, which was under deductible, and then the PA gets involved, it's like 30,000, but the PA's estimate is like 120. This law firm is specifically focused on the fact of how high your estimate is versus how low theirs is. And we all know that it's a felony offense to inflate an estimate, but it's not a felony offense to underpay a claim.
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. So this is what my solution is for some of the problem. Okay. First thing is the insureds. You make a law that says the insureds can no longer file their own claim. The second thing you do is you make it where the only person who can file a claim is a public advocate or a PA. Okay. Or an attorney. An attorney would have the right to do it as well. But the idea is that you could go see Miss Smith, and Miss Smith could say to you, or Mr. HOA or whatever, they could say to you, we want to file this claim. And you could say, hey, maybe that's a good idea, or maybe it's not. And then when you file the claim, you'd have the appropriate date of loss, the appropriate type of claim. You would know the responsibilities after loss, and you would be key to inform the carrier properly. So all those things that go terribly wrong that you then have to clean up later, you wouldn't have to do, because you would only be doing with you would only be filing an appropriate claim. And like if somebody had a claim, but it wasn't a good claim for them, the PA could say, no, don't file that. Any good PA does that anyway. So the case may be, but here's the catch. So now every single time the carrier has to adjust a claim, they're doing it with a PA. They're doing it with another adjuster. Do you see how that pivot would happen? Now it's every claim. So now everybody's represented, and you have two claims professionals that are doing it at the same time. Now, this is the hard part. That part, I could probably get that done. Okay? The second part is the hard part, because it requires a systemic change. The second part is you take the adjusters and you make them kind of a pseudo-state employee. They go into a pool, and every time the carrier needs them, they punch a button online and it spits out the name of the adjuster that's going to be working for the carrier episodically. So you may work for this carrier, this carrier, this carrier, this carrier, but you're only working for them on that one claim, and you're not having to adjust it so that you get your next 500 claims. You see what I'm saying? So you take it. So now you have a public advocate, and then you have an IA who is beholden to the process much more than beholden to getting their next job. So the outcome changes. You see?
Are you saying the IAs should be working for the PAs?
No, I'm saying the IAs are working for the insurance company, but they weren't at a TPA somewhere doing the things they think they need to do to get their next 500 claims.
I think that the IAs, you want to know what I think? David, what you're presenting is a very intelligent, strategic situation for a monumental shift of the industry. And I appreciate your intelligence, and I appreciate your strategic thought process to have this kind of discussion with me. But what I think should happen is all the IAs, now listen to this.
Yeah, just pull up. No, pull up behind your car. We'll have to work that out. But want somebody on the street, and we'll work it out. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Go ahead. I have my kids coming home.
Have to give a shout out to this law firm. It's amazing. But
Okay.
Like he's so awesome. He's so smart. But
do it. Who is it?
All right. So it's Zaf Goss from HTML law firm. Highly recommended for residential properties.
Excellent. Yes.
He does a couple. He's had a few, $1-2 million deals. I think he was very prideful of his $7 million loss that he had, because some of the deals I bring him are $5, $6, $7 million. But I tend to not give him those kind of deals. But he's recently been communicating with me about these larger losses that he's been involved in. However, I don't want to get too wrapped up in that, but the residential stuff that he does for me is absolutely phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Like the CRNs he does, the time frame he closes it in, and the intelligence. And the intelligence isn't necessarily like logistics. It's not like most people are logical or not logical. This is like straight up logic combined with education. So the education and logic are coming together in such a capacity that I've talked to him about very, very strategic and complex things, and I've got to give it out to Zaf Goss, man. I mean, I love some attorneys I work with on a personal level. I think they're great friends of mine, and I still give them, tons of deals. But Zaf Goss is a very fucking intelligent man.
Well, and one thing you'll usually find about these lawyers that are really amazing that work behind PAs, the reason why it's so cool is because usually the PA that's the good PA is going to create a complete claim file, a perfectly complete claim file. Get a copy of the Xactimate EULA. Say to them that you agree when you use that software not to follow the historic databases because they're historic. They don't mean anything for today. That you have actually appropriately scoped it, and you have, as a service to the carrier, used the inappropriate price list. You see where I'm going? So you appropriately adjusted the file with the appropriate number of line items because you knew how to actually estimate the loss. That insured, by contrast, that adjuster, by contrast, did not know how to use that software. And if you want to prove it, go look them up on Xactware. And say, look, go look them up on Xactware and see if they're certified to do that work. And then if you really want to do it, you can look at the certification of the person who wrote your estimate.
That's the bad one. That's the one that's literally going after our public adjusting. Like that's the bad one.
So what we're going to do is we're going to help get an answer for that. Okay.
Yeah, that's the I literally have to hire attorneys. Cause anyways, but dude, I'm going to tell you later. I'm going to talk to you tomorrow. I'm going to tell you how to address that really, really well before you get there. Okay. Well, like, here's the thing, dude. It's like the estimation, right? So that law firm is literally busting our balls saying that we fraudulently inflated the estimate, and it's the estimation process. And
okay. Do you understand that what they're doing is they're trying to put you on the menu?
Yeah, I'm not intimidated, and I'm not worried. Not yet, anyways. But here's the thing, like, I understand that we have a nice contract and it relieves you of any kind of obligation to writing the estimate. I totally get it.
You could make them depose me.
Well, yeah, but I'm not going to do that to you.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, but then who's writing the estimate? And, like, are we fraudulent for not having the estimate written by us?
No, it's your estimate. It's your estimate. You reviewed it. You provided all the information. You reviewed it to make sure it was right. But my point is,
honestly.
Okay, watch this. We had an Xactimate level 3 estimator write our estimate. We reviewed it. Just trust me. We'll do that later.
Super appreciate the invite to be here with you, and I really, really do.
It's good. It's good to see you, Sterling, and it's good to see your hair. You take care, man. All right, man. I'll talk to you soon. Peace, brother. Take care, man. Thanks.